You're just off that call. I have to say, I know you were in favor of going for a vote. We're postponing the vote, but what is it going to take for Texas to consider ratcheting back production? We had negative oil prices yesterday. The next contract is trading at $11 a barrel. What is it going to take for Texas to do this in a manner when we're probably going to have shut-ins regardless?
Yeah, frankly, I think your first question was, what does it take for us to consider it? Well, you've seen it, and we are considering it. I think the next question is, does it get done? And look, the lower the prices, the more the layoffs, the more massive amount of shutdown in industry, the more you say, wow, there is a lot of waste, and this is exactly why the Railroad Commission was given this power by the legislature 100 years ago.
Right, so what legal challenges could you face? That seemed to be one of the concerns with the other commissioners. It's mandated for the Texas Railroad Commission, which you look after oil, to make sure that you're not wasting away the oil in the state. So what are the legal challenges they're worried about?
Frankly, I don't think there are any significant legal challenges. I think that's a normal kind of political concern is, oh my gosh, I don't want to do something that might have a nuance about it that's wrong. But as you said, we have with decades of history of doing this. We have a lot of latitude in the Natural Resources Code for how we do it. So I think there are no real legal challenges that should slow us down.
On part of the call, you guys talked about Mexico, OPEC, Canada. You're wanting to see more cuts really across the board. We know that OPEC's already cutting. They had a bit of an urgent call today. Mexico, we've seen that party before. President Donald Trump himself said that the United States will make up for Mexico's slack, that basically then they cannot cut towards the OPEC cuts. Canada's an interesting situation. Have you gotten any verbal commitments with anyone or possibly anyone in North Dakota about cuts alongside Texas?
No, when you say verbal commitments, we've obviously gotten no formal commitments. But yes, I mean, I've talked to my counterparts in Alberta, Sonia Savage. I've talked to counterparts in New Mexico, in other states, and consistently they're saying, yes, our producers recognize the challenge, and we recognize we need to do something. Frankly, I think Texas is leading on this and laying the groundwork by saying we're going to cut 1 million. We're looking for another 4 million from other people out there. I think that gives people the impetus to go do it, and so I think it will move the ball if we can lead.
Would you guys have to do something together, or could Texas come out first and say we have some verbal agreements and we're willing to go forward? Or are you looking to do something more kind of like we saw the G20 energy ministers meet? Is there going to be something similar to that, maybe on this side of the Atlantic?
I think, well, that's why I proposed the solution the way I did, that we would go ahead and vote on cuts, and that those cuts, though, would go into effect June 1st only if other people cut. So what it would do is it would allow us, it would show that we are moving and allow us to codify, if you will, the formal number. However, it still puts the impetus on others to join us in that. And then it's up to me, up to leaders in Texas to go get other states to take action. As you watch those numbers build, I think the focus goes on to those who haven't cut. So, for example, if North Dakota makes a move, then Oklahoma makes a move, and then the president or the federal government does something to limit offshore production, then, wow, if Canada will move, I mean, you'll start to see those numbers come on the list, all going toward Texas, towards the total number that Texas is leading on.
I wanted to bring up the federal government. President Donald Trump says they're working on plans to help the U.S. oil industry. There's also potentially we could see tariffs on imports. What do you think Washington needs to do in a response to this complete collapse in the market?
Well, I'll tell you, first, there's sort of a philosophical issue. You know, there was in the recent stimulus package that was passed, there was a portion that was devoted to the federal government buying up a bunch of really cheap crude oil and filling up our strategic petroleum reserves, that was not a bailout for the oil industry. It was just a chance for the federal government to make a lot of money. And yet it still got killed because a lot of people on the left decided that, well, we don't want to do anything to prop up oil and gas. I don't know if you heard, but AOC, the congresswoman from New York, tweeted yesterday basically a sarcastic slam that she was glad to see the oil industry going down. Until Washington and their leaders across both sides of the aisle say, without American strength and energy, every single one of our industries suffers, then it's very hard to get a deal done. And it's time for the people who have been anti-oil and gas because it was politically convenient for so long to get off that train and recognize if we're sitting here in 10 years and America is starving for energy, and our energy prices are double what they are today, then frankly every one of them should be voted out of office. And so I think if that happens, then you start looking at real deals to support this vital piece of the entire American economy.
Yeah, I think that Congresswoman actually deleted that tweet. I think the Dems just want this tied to what the future and energy transition looks like. Ryan, I want to ask you about demand. 25 million barrels a day, 35 million barrels a day. How much do you see demand loss? And also, where are we on storage? Goldman Sachs says Cushing is going to be filled by the first week of May. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I'll speak to the supply. I think the world right now is, I think actually we run some models here in my office. We've got right at 30 million barrels a day that the world is oversupplied right now. Of course, that's before the OPEC cuts come into effect here in the next 2 weeks. But, yeah, storage is filling up around the world, and I agree with that number. I think that in the first or second week of May, Cushing, there will be no excess capacity in Cushing. And when that happens, that means that the U.S. producer can only produce what's actually being consumed right now. And some estimates are that U.S. refining network is only running 14 million barrels a day, that our exports of U.S. crude have dropped down below 2. So that
Ryan, we're going to have to leave it there.
Country...
Sorry, Ryan. The Texas Railroad Commissioner, we'll speak to him on May 5th when we finally get that vote.